I booked the Airbnb because every hotel in downtown Chicago was either sold out or absurdly expensive. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. Looking back now, I think if I had spent 5 more minutes reading the reviews carefully, I probably wouldn't have stayed there. But when you're exhausted, alone, and desperate for sleep, your brain ignores red flags. This happened in February of last year. I had flown to Chicago for a 3-day video editing contract with a small documentary company. The job itself wasn't important. I mostly wanted the money. The Airbnb listing looked decent enough. Small apartment, downtown location, self-check-in, cheap price. Too cheap. That should have been my first warning. The photos showed a modern apartment with dark gray walls, minimalist furniture, dim, warm lighting, and huge windows overlooking the city. It looked clean, quiet, safe. The host's name was Daniel. No profile picture, no reviews as a host, just a blank gray icon. Again, another red flag I ignored. The only strange part in the listing description was one sentence near the bottom. Storage room inside apartment remains locked at all times. That was it. No explanation. I assumed the owner just kept personal stuff inside. I booked it anyway. My flight landed around 9 p.m. during a snowstorm. By the time I reached the apartment building, it was almost midnight. The neighborhood felt strangely empty for downtown Chicago. Not abandoned, just quiet in a way cities usually aren't. The building itself looked old, very old. 12 floors, faded brick walls, buzzing fluorescent lights in the lobby. Half the mailboxes were broken. There was no receptionist, no doorman, just a keypad entry and an elevator that sounded like it was dying every time it moved. I got a text from the host while riding up. Apartment 6C, please do not attempt to open the locked room. No welcome, no smiley face, nothing else. The hallway on the 6th floor smelled like dust and old carpet. Apartment 6C sat at the very end. The moment I unlocked the door, something already felt wrong. Not dangerous, just off. The apartment was warmer than expected, unnaturally warm, like someone had been inside recently. The lights were already on when I entered. The place looked exactly like the photos. Living room, kitchen, bathroom, bedroom. And near the hallway, a white door with 3 locks on it. That had to be the storage room. I remember laughing quietly to myself. 3 locks? What was this guy hiding in there? Gold bars? I dropped my bags near the couch and started unpacking. That's when I noticed the first weird thing. There were 2 coffee mugs in the sink. One clean, one dirty. I froze for a second. Maybe the cleaner forgot them. Still, seeing evidence that someone had recently been there made me uncomfortable. I rinsed them off and tried ignoring it. Around 1 a.m., I finally went to bed, and for a while, everything seemed normal. Until I woke up to coughing. Not outside, inside the apartment. A man coughing. Deep, wet, repeated coughing. I sat upright instantly. The sound came from the hallway, specifically behind the locked door. I stared into the darkness, listening carefully. Another cough. Then silence. I checked my phone. 3:14 a.m. At first, I genuinely assumed maybe another apartment tenant was making noise through the walls. Old buildings carry sound weirdly. That explanation lasted maybe 30 seconds, because then I heard movement directly behind the door. Slow footsteps. One step, then another. Whoever was behind that door was pacing. I got out of bed carefully and walked toward the hallway. The apartment was completely silent now, but as I stood there, I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. Light underneath the locked door, a faint yellow light. Someone was inside. I immediately messaged the host. No idea if this is normal, but there's someone in the locked room. Message delivered. No response. I waited 5 minutes. Nothing. Another message. Hello? Still nothing. That's when the light under the door suddenly disappeared, like whoever was inside had turned and noticed me standing there. I backed away slowly and locked myself in the bedroom. For the rest of the night, I barely slept. Every few hours, I kept hearing movement from the hallway. Footsteps, coughing, very soft scratching sounds, and once, what sounded like whispering. Not words, just whispering. Morning finally came around 8, and honestly, daylight made everything feel stupid. My brain started rationalizing everything. Maybe the host had a relative staying in there. Maybe it was maintenance. Maybe I overreacted. I checked the hallway again. The locked door looked normal, silent, no light underneath anymore. I tried focusing on work. Around noon, I left the apartment to grab coffee downstairs, and that's when things became worse. An older woman stepped into the elevator with me. She looked at me for a few seconds before asking, "You staying in 6C?" I nodded. The expression on her face changed immediately. Not fear exactly, more like pity. Then she asked, "Did he tell you about the noises?" I felt my stomach drop. I asked what she meant. The woman hesitated for a second, then quietly said, "People don't usually stay there more than one night." Before I could ask anything else, the elevator opened and she walked out. Just before leaving, she turned and added, "Don't open that room." Then she disappeared down the lobby hallway. At that point, I seriously considered leaving, but I kept convincing myself there had to be a logical explanation. There always is, right? That night, the snowstorm got worse. Wind hammered against the windows hard enough to shake them. I ordered food, watched YouTube, tried distracting myself. Around midnight, the apartment Wi-Fi suddenly disconnected. Then, the TV turned on by itself. Static. Just loud white static filling the living room. I grabbed the remote, wouldn't respond, and then, from the hallway, came 3 knocks, directly behind the locked door. Knock, knock, knock. I stopped breathing. A voice came next, soft, male. "Can you help me?" Every hair on my body stood up. I didn't answer. The voice came again. "We've been trying to reach you." We, not I. We. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the front door immediately. But the deadbolt wouldn't unlock. I swear to God, it felt jammed from the outside. That's when the coughing started again. Closer this time, right behind the door. Then the doorknob moved, very slowly. One lock clicked, then another. I stumbled backward in panic. The third lock began rattling violently, then suddenly stopped. Silence. Complete silence. A notification buzzed on my phone. A message from the host. "Please ignore him." I stared at the message in disbelief. Him? Before I could respond, another message appeared. "He gets confused at night." At that point, I didn't even care about my stuff anymore. I just wanted out. I grabbed a kitchen knife and forced the front door open, hard enough to nearly break the lock. The hallway outside was empty, completely empty. I ran to the elevator and hit the button repeatedly. Nothing. The elevator wasn't moving. That's when I heard the apartment door behind me creak open, slowly. I turned around. The hallway light inside 6C was on, and standing near the locked room door was a man. Tall, extremely thin, pale skin, wearing gray sweatpants and no shirt. His ribs were visible through his skin, and the worst part, he was smiling at me. Not normal smiling, the kind of smile that looks painful to hold, too wide, too still. He tilted his head slightly and whispered, "You weren't supposed to leave." Then all the hallway lights went out. Pitch black. I heard fast footsteps sprinting toward me. I don't remember reaching the stairs. Adrenaline completely took over. I ran down 6 flights barefoot while hearing footsteps above me the entire time. Not behind me, above me. Like whoever was chasing me wasn't using the stairs normally. I burst into the lobby and ran straight into the street during the snowstorm. I didn't stop running until I reached a crowded gas station almost half a mile away. Police came about 20 minutes later. I explained everything. The officers looked annoyed more than concerned. Still, they went to investigate, and here's where things stopped making sense. The apartment was empty. Completely empty. No furniture, no luggage, no locked room, nothing. The officers genuinely thought I was either drunk or mentally unstable. One of them even asked if I'd taken drugs. I kept insisting my bags were still upstairs, my laptop, my clothes, everything. But according to police, apartment 6C had been vacant for almost 8 months. No Airbnb listing existed for it anymore. The building manager claimed nobody had legally entered the apartment in nearly a year. I showed them the booking confirmation on my phone. Error message, listing unavailable, host deleted. Everything gone, like it never existed. Eventually, I gave up trying to explain it, because honestly, there's one thing I never told police. When I escaped that building, I accidentally took the wrong backpack. I didn't realize until the next morning. Inside were canned food, old medications, dozens of disposable cameras, and hundreds of photographs. All taken inside apartment 6C. Different guests, different years, some sleeping, some crying, some staring directly at the camera like they had just realized someone was inside the apartment with them. But the very last photo was the worst, because it had been taken only minutes before I escaped. It showed me standing at the elevator, pressing the button repeatedly, panicking, and in the darkness behind me, that smiling man was already halfway down the hallway, watching me, waiting, and written across the bottom of the photo were 3 words: "Come back soon." I never believed those stories about hidden cameras and Airbnbs. Honestly, I used to think people online exaggerated everything for attention. That changed last October. I booked a luxury Airbnb outside Sedona, Arizona for 4 nights because I needed to get away from people for a while. I work as a freelance video editor in Los Angeles, and at that point, my brain felt completely fried. Too much screen time, too much noise, too many people. I just wanted silence. The listing looked perfect. Minimalist glass house in the middle of the desert. No nearby neighbors. Private heated pool. Fully automated smart home. The photos looked almost unreal. At night, the entire house glowed softly in the middle of the empty desert, like some futuristic showroom. It had over 300 5-star reviews. Most of them said things like, "Perfect peaceful escape. The smartest Airbnb we've ever stayed in. The house feels alive." At the time, that last review sounded cool. Now, it makes me sick. The drive there took almost 3 hours. The farther I got from the city, the emptier everything became. No gas stations, no stores. Nothing except endless desert and dry mountains. By the time I reached the property, the sun was already setting. The house looked exactly like the photos. Huge glass walls, white concrete exterior, modern architecture. But the thing that immediately felt strange was the silence. No wind, no insects, nothing. Just complete silence. The front door unlocked automatically the second I walked up to it. Then my phone buzzed, a message from the host. "Welcome, Daniel. The house is now synced to your preferences." I remember pausing after reading that. Synced to my preferences? I figured maybe it was some automated smart home thing. Inside, the place looked insane. Soft ambient lighting turned on automatically as I walked through rooms. The air conditioning adjusted itself. Music started quietly playing through hidden speakers. And this is where things first started feeling off. The music playing was jazz, not random jazz, Miles Davis. That's important, because earlier that same day, during the drive, I had been listening to Miles Davis through Spotify for almost 2 hours. I hadn't connected my phone to anything inside the house. I never even opened Spotify after arriving. I stood there for a second, just staring at the ceiling speakers. Then I convinced myself it was coincidence. I unpacked my stuff, made coffee, and tried relaxing. But over the next few hours, little things kept happening. Things that were too specific. The thermostat automatically changed to 68 degrees. That's the exact temperature I keep my apartment at. The smart TV displayed a welcome back screen, even though I'd never been there before. And around midnight, while I was editing footage on my laptop, the TV suddenly turned on by itself. Just static. Loud static. I grabbed the remote and muted it. That's when I noticed something moving in the reflection of the black TV screen behind me. A figure, standing near the hallway. I spun around immediately. Nothing there. The hallway was empty. I laughed nervously and told myself I was overtired. But then the house speaker spoke, a calm female voice. Motion detected in the east hallway. I froze. The hallway lights turned on automatically. Still nothing there. No movement, no person, nothing. I barely slept that first night. Every tiny sound in that house felt amplified. The walls creaked constantly. And sometime around 3 a.m., I woke up because I heard footsteps above me. Slow footsteps, back and forth, directly over the bedroom. The problem was, there wasn't a second floor. I checked the listing again on my phone. Single-level property, no upstairs. The footsteps continued for almost 10 minutes, then suddenly stopped. The next morning, I tried shaking off the weird feeling. I went outside, drank coffee near the pool, and convinced myself isolation was just messing with my head. That afternoon, I decided to record cinematic footage around the property using my camera drone. And while reviewing footage later that evening, I noticed something. Near the back side of the house, partially hidden between rocks, was a black SUV. Far away, maybe 200 yards out. At first, I assumed it belonged to another property owner. But when I zoomed in, the vehicle was facing directly toward the Airbnb, like someone had been watching the house. I didn't like that feeling at all. I checked outside through the giant bedroom windows. The SUV wasn't visible anymore. That night, things became much worse. At exactly 2:13 a.m., every light inside the house turned on at once. I woke up instantly. Then all the lights turned red. Not bright red, dim emergency red lighting. The same female voice came through the speakers. Security mode enabled. I sat up in bed, completely confused. Then my phone buzzed. Back door opened. I grabbed my flashlight and checked the kitchen. The back door was closed and locked, but the motion sensor near the hallway kept blinking, detecting movement, over and over. I started genuinely panicking at that point. I opened the Airbnb app to message the host. No response. I called the number listed on the account. Disconnected. That's when I noticed something above the kitchen smoke detector. A tiny blinking green light. Too small to notice normally. I stepped onto a chair and looked closer. Camera lens. My stomach dropped instantly. I started searching the house after that, and once I found one camera, I started finding more. Inside the living room speaker, near the bedroom air vent, behind a decorative wall clock. Tiny hidden cameras everywhere. I felt sick. I grabbed my bags immediately because I wanted to leave right then. But when I tried opening the front door, it wouldn't unlock. The smart lock flashed red. Access restricted. I tried the back door. Same thing. That's when the speakers activated again. Please remain inside the property. I yelled, "What the hell is this?" No response. Then suddenly, a loud metallic bang echoed from somewhere inside the walls. Not outside, inside. Like someone hit metal pipes with a hammer. Then another bang. Closer this time. I completely lost it. I started checking every room for another person. That's when I found the utility hallway. I swear to God this hallway wasn't there before. A narrow white hallway beside the laundry room. At the end was a black door slightly open, cold air coming from inside. I grabbed a kitchen knife before opening it. Behind the door was a small underground room. Concrete walls, server equipment, computer monitors, hard drives stacked everywhere. And on the wall, photos. Dozens of them. Printed photos of different Airbnb guests. Some sleeping, some showering, some caught in moments they didn't know were being watched. Every photo had dates written beneath them. Years worth of guests. I felt physically sick looking at them. Then I saw a folder sitting on the desk labeled Current Guest. My hands were shaking when I opened it. Inside were printed screenshots of me arriving earlier that day, sleeping in bed, standing in the kitchen. One image made my blood run cold. It was a photo of me sitting on the couch looking at my laptop, taken from behind. And standing in the dark hallway, only a few feet away from me, was a tall, blurry figure, watching me. I don't even remember leaving that room. I just remember hearing movement above me again. Heavy footsteps, this time running. I sprinted back into the living room, and then I finally saw someone. A silhouette, standing outside the glass wall near the pool. Tall, completely still, just staring inside. I couldn't see the face, only the outline. Then my phone received another notification. Live feed active. I looked down. A video stream had opened automatically. It showed me standing in the living room. Real-time footage, filmed from somewhere inside the room. But the angle was impossible. Like the camera was moving, slowly circling around me. I started screaming at whoever was outside. The figure didn't move. Then suddenly, every speaker in the house began playing audio. At first, I thought it was static. Then I realized it was audio of me sleeping earlier that night. My breathing, my movements, everything recorded. Then, another sound appeared in the recording. Soft whispering. A male voice, right beside the bed, whispering something repeatedly. I turned the volume louder, and I swear this is exactly what it said. "You should have left yesterday." Then, all the lights inside the house shut off. Complete darkness. I heard footsteps sprinting somewhere nearby. Not outside anymore, inside the house. I ran straight toward the emergency glass breaker mounted near the kitchen. I smashed the side window and crawled outside, cutting my arm badly in the process. The desert was freezing cold. I ran without looking back. I don't know how long I kept running before reaching the road. Maybe 20 minutes, maybe more. Eventually, a passing truck driver stopped and called police. When officers returned to the Airbnb with me just before sunrise, the property looked normal. Too normal. No red lights, no hidden hallway, no underground room, nothing. The officers searched the entire house. No cameras, no server equipment, no photos. No signs anyone else had been there. One officer actually asked if I'd been drinking. The Airbnb listing had disappeared completely by morning. Deleted. No host profile, no booking history. Nothing. For weeks afterward, I convinced myself stress had caused some kind of breakdown. Maybe isolation messed with my head. Maybe I imagined parts of it. That's what I kept telling myself. Until 3 weeks later. I was editing footage from my Arizona trip on my computer. Most of the clips were normal desert shots, but near the end of one drone recording, I noticed something near the house. Someone standing on the roof, watching the drone, watching me. Tall, motionless, and when I zoomed in frame by frame, I realized the figure had no face visible at all, just darkness. I deleted all the footage immediately. I didn't want to see it anymore. But that's still not the worst part. A few nights later, around 1:40 a.m., I woke up because my phone screen turned on by itself. There was a new image saved in my camera roll. No sender, no number, just one photo. It was me sleeping in my apartment, taken from the corner of my bedroom. And standing beside my bed was that same tall figure, looking directly at the camera. I never told the police everything that happened in that house. Not because I was hiding something, but because some parts of it still don't make sense. And honestly, I don't think they would have believed me anyway. This happened last October when I took a solo photography trip through Northern Oregon. I'd just gotten out of a relationship. My remote editing job was stressing me out, and I wanted a week away from people. No city, no friends, no noise. Just forests, rain, and isolation. I found an Airbnb about 40 minutes outside a tiny town called Black Creek. The listing looked normal enough. Small wooden cabin, 1 bedroom, private property. Perfect for disconnecting. The photos showed a cozy interior with warm lighting, old wooden furniture, and huge windows facing the woods. What caught my attention was the price. It was insanely cheap. Like, suspiciously cheap. 3 nights for under $100, but the reviews looked real. Mostly older couples talking about how peaceful it was. One review stood out though. It was only one sentence. If you hear knocking under the floorboards at night, ignore it. No explanation. Nothing else. At first, I assumed it was some weird joke review people leave to be funny. I should have listened to it. The drive there already felt wrong. Once I got out near Black Creek, my GPS signal started cutting in and out. The roads became narrower, darker. At one point, I drove almost 15 minutes without seeing another car. Just endless trees. It was already getting dark when I finally found the property. The cabin sat alone at the end of a muddy gravel road, surrounded by dense forest. No neighboring houses, no lights nearby, just this single cabin in the middle of nowhere. The owner texted me right as I parked. "Door is unlocked. Please don't go outside after midnight." That was it. No welcome, no smiley face, nothing. I remember sitting in my car, rereading that message thinking, what kind of Airbnb host sends that? Still, I ignored the weird feeling. I grabbed my bags and went inside. The cabin looked almost exactly like the photos, but colder, not temperature-wise, just emotionally cold, like nobody had lived there in years. The furniture smelled damp. The wooden floors creaked constantly, and there was this strange odor in the air I couldn't identify. Not rotten, not mold, something earthy, like wet soil. I checked the rooms. Tiny kitchen, living room, bathroom, bedroom. Everything normal, almost. Then I noticed something strange near the hallway. A square-shaped section of the wooden floor had scratches all around its edges, like it had been opened hundreds of times. It looked almost like a trapdoor, but it blended into the floorboards so well, you'd miss it if you weren't paying attention. That should have been enough for me to leave, but I didn't, because nothing technically dangerous had happened yet. And honestly, part of me thought the creepy atmosphere was kind of cool. Around 11 p.m., it started raining hard outside. The kind of rain that completely swallows every other sound. I was editing photos on my laptop when I heard the first knock. 3 slow taps, directly beneath me. Knock, knock, knock. I froze. At first I thought maybe pipes expanding or wood settling. Then it happened again, this time from under the living room floor. Slow, intentional, like someone underneath the cabin was knocking upward. I muted my laptop audio and listened carefully. Silence. Then scratching. Not loud, just faint scraping beneath the floorboards. I suddenly remembered that review. If you hear knocking under the floorboards at night, ignore it. My stomach dropped. I tried convincing myself there was some logical explanation. Animals, maybe. Raccoons. But deep down I already knew it wasn't animals, because animals don't knock in patterns. At around midnight, the power went out. The entire cabin went black, instantly. No TV, no lights, no Wi-Fi, nothing. Only rain. I grabbed my phone flashlight and immediately noticed something terrifying. The trapdoor in the hallway was slightly open now, only by an inch. But I know it wasn't open before. I stared at it for a good 10 seconds, trying to process what I was seeing. Then I heard movement beneath it. Slow movement, like someone shifting their weight underground. I backed away immediately. Every instinct in my body was screaming to get out of that house. But outside was pitch black forest and heavy rain. And my car keys were still charging near the kitchen counter. That's when I heard it. A voice, very quietly, under the floor. Don't leave. I can still hear the way it sounded. Not aggressive, not loud, almost calm, like someone politely asking me to stay. I grabbed my keys so fast I nearly dropped my phone. And the second I touched them, something slammed violently beneath the floorboards, hard enough to shake the entire hallway. I ran for the front door, but when I opened it, there was someone standing outside, just staring at me. Tall, thin, completely soaked from the rain. I couldn't see their face clearly in the darkness. They didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, blocking the steps. I slammed the door shut instantly. My heart was beating so hard, I felt dizzy. And then, the knocking started again. Except now it was coming from two places, under the floor and the front door. I locked myself in the bedroom. For almost an hour I just sat there, holding a kitchen knife, listening to footsteps moving slowly around the cabin. Sometimes outside, sometimes underneath. At one point, I heard the bedroom window creak slightly, like someone pressing against it from outside. Then my phone buzzed. A new message from the Airbnb owner. Did you open it? That was the entire text. I replied instantly. There's someone outside your cabin. No response. I sent another message. Nothing. Then another knock beneath the bedroom floor, directly under the bed this time. 3 slow knocks. My entire body went cold, because whatever was under the cabin was moving. I barely slept. Every hour, I kept hearing movement, scratching, knocking, footsteps outside. Around 4 a.m., everything suddenly stopped. Complete silence. Eventually, exhaustion took over, and I passed out for maybe an hour. When I woke up, sunlight was coming through the windows. The storm had ended, and for a second, I actually convinced myself maybe I imagined parts of it. Until I stepped into the hallway. The trap door was fully open now. Darkness beneath it. Cold air drifting upward, and muddy footprints leading out from inside it. Bare human footprints. I should have left immediately. I know that. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, especially when fear mixes with adrenaline. I grabbed my flashlight and looked down into the opening. There was a narrow wooden ladder leading underground, and I could smell that same earthy odor again. Wet dirt, decay, something else too, something metallic. I slowly climbed down. The space underneath the cabin wasn't a basement. It was a tunnel, handmade, narrow dirt walls reinforced with old wooden beams. And hanging from the ceiling were dozens of old photographs, Polaroids mostly. People sleeping inside the cabin, different guests, different years. Some photos looked decades old, some recent. My chest tightened immediately. Then I saw one taken through the bedroom window, of me, sleeping, taken only hours earlier. That's when I heard breathing behind me. Not close, farther down the tunnel. Slow, wet, uneven breathing. I turned my flashlight toward it, and for a split second, I saw someone standing at the far end, smiling. Then the flashlight died. I don't remember climbing out. Pure survival instinct took over. I scrambled back into the cabin, grabbed my bag, and sprinted to my car. The front door of the cabin was already open when I ran outside. I never closed it. I drove almost 90 miles before stopping. And the weirdest part? When I tried reporting the place later, the Airbnb listing was gone, deleted completely. Even stranger, the address no longer existed on the app, like the property had never been there. Police eventually searched the area after I filed a report, but according to them, they never found a cabin. Only an empty clearing in the woods. No foundation, no tunnel, nothing. The officer actually asked me if I'd been drinking. I never argued with them after that, because there's one detail I never told anybody. Not police, not friends, nobody. When I unpacked my camera bag 2 days later, there was a photograph inside it. A Polaroid. Me asleep in my bedroom at home, taken the night after I returned from Oregon. And written across the bottom in black marker were 4 words. Thanks for opening it.